a sermon for Good Friday. And so we look upon the one whom they have pierced. We see his bleeding side. We look upon the bruises on his face, the welts on his back. We see him crushed by a lethal combination of official state power fearing for its own survival and the power of the mob who have turned their backs on love and compassion. If you release this man, you are no friend of the emperor, they hiss. Shall I crucify your king? Pilate sneers. We hear them accuse. We hear them demand punishment. And if there is a voice somewhere crying out, stop, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? That voice has been drowned out. Together, Pilate, the police, the chief priest, and the crowd come together as judge and jury to condemn what they do not understand and to bring about the end of a human life. What is it about overt displays of power that attracts us, or at least persuades us to tolerate them? What makes us shrug at injustice or look down at our shoes in the face of mockery and posturing and hateful condemnation? I heard Brian Stevenson, public interest lawyer and author of the book Just Mercy, which was recently made into a movie. I heard him speak at VCU a few years ago, and a question that he asked then has haunted me ever since. Why do we want to get rid of broken people? I believe we despise weakness and look down on vulnerability and cheer on the powerful who spew vitriol and disdain and revel in, and indeed seem proud of, humiliating others, because deep down inside, we are afraid. We're afraid of being abandoned, of being mocked, of looking stupid, of being hurt, of losing our status, our way of life, our very lives. We're afraid of being overwhelmed by forces over which we have no control, like a pandemic, say, or a stock market crash or a recession. We're all caught up in this in one way or another, this narrative that says we need to be afraid. Some of us are implicated as power players, concerned with our own interests. Some of us have been victims and may hear this story and feel our own humiliation and pain. Some of us, maybe most of us, are just standing by in our own bewildered grief, trying to hold on to some kind of hope. It seems to me, as we look on this heartbreaking convergence of hate and fear, violence and brokenness, that this is the way that Jesus draws us all to himself, gathering all us together the way a crash, a spectacular smash-up, so powerfully draws the gaze and attention of us all, perpetrator, victim, and bystander alike. To say, look, I beg you, look. This is what the world does. But this is not what I intend for you. This is not what God wants for us, to live in fear, to be so afraid that we turn away from love and compassion and instead put our faith in something strong, but ultimately straw, a thing that does not care for us. Power itself is on trial today. Neither Pilate nor the people understand that power over Jesus' life and death rests with Jesus and with no one else. The judgment is not on Jesus, but on the world that does not recognize the revelation of God in him, a man who gave water to the thirsty and sight to the blind and love to sinners and life to the dead. While standing before Pilate at his trial, Jesus says that he came to testify to the truth. And Pilate's answer is, what is truth? He wouldn't recognize the truth if it were standing right in front of him, because his concern was keeping his power and asserting his authority. He was not open to transformation in the presence of truth and love. And the people do not understand that ultimately neither Pilate nor the Roman soldiers nor any of their institutions can be the protector that they long for. The powerful will sacrifice life for political expediency. The empire will fall, and so will the temple. The truth is, there is no stronger power than love. It is only love and mercy and hope that can protect us from the degradation we see today. We are all degraded by hatred and violence. Hatred and fear warps everyone. Of course we long for a protector. And today we have seen him. He refused to meet violence with violence, even though it cost him his life. He refused to give in to anger and fear. He showed us another way of being, of living, that is about divine, abundant life for everyone in the midst of a world that is more at home with stories about scarcity and the fight for power and control by a few. He is the Good Shepherd who knows us all by name and longs to protect us as a mother hen shields her chicks beneath her wings. He is the face of God, who knows that there are consequences for loving justice and mercy, for practicing compassion, for living without fear of those who want control and power. And he was willing to take those consequences. So Jesus has bowed his head and has given up his spirit. And we properly offer up our lament. The fact that we know how it will turn out does not lessen the need for grief. Grief for what we do to each other. Grief for the soul-crushing that hatred and killing does to both victim and perpetrator. That kills some and hardens others and frightens us from naming injustice and violence for what it is. Grief for all who suffer in this life and for all who cause suffering and for those who cannot bear to look and for those who cannot face their own complicity. Let us grieve and lament and be gathered together in the tomb, perpetrator, victim, and bystander all together. And together, let us there summon hope. For the truth is that out of this utter darkness, salvation will arise.